You are listening to Nerd Best Friends, a podcast that covers the nerdy conversations you're already having, or wish you could. It's the nerdiest thing you'll do this week.
This is Analese.
And this is Rob.
And we are your nerd best friends. It's time to unlock the new edition of Dungeons & Dragons, so get your dice towers and spell books ready.
This is your Nerd Best Friends official call to action. Grab your device, hit that subscribe button, give us a rating, and share this episode with your fellow geeks. Let's grow this nerd community together. Every click helps us reach more of you out there.
This is episode 68, and I'm so excited we welcome back. It's America's favorite teen nerd, Andrew. Andrew, welcome back to the show.
I have been sent back in time. I come with a dire warning. Listeners, I've been gone so long. I was doing a solo arc. Basically, my teleporting powers, we finally understand it's because I go to hell. So I went to hell, and then I came back with swords, and now I'm here to tell you, listeners, the new edition of 1D&D is going to change the future.
One
Wow.
D&D to rule them all. And I get that. I get it now. I get that reference now, right?
Good job,
get it?
Annalise.
I still
Hey,
don't
Andrew,
get it.
welcome back from the future. Welcome
hell.
to the future.
I was in hell in the future.
Is this you now, or is this you from then coming here now, or is it from...
Wait, do you have like an eye patch and like a gray beard?
Right. Well, because the running bit that I would do every episode is that I would have something different about me, and I think I've collected all these things now. I have the robot arm, I have the eye patch, I have the beard. I went to the future, and then I went to hell, and I saw my father there at 79 years old because of Death Clock AI, and you can tell I'm from the future. And you have to keep listening to the episode to understand the reference to Death Clock AI.
Oh boy.
Gotcha.
So by hell, you mean high school, because high school is hell, according to Buffy.
By hell, I mean sophomore year, yes.
Yeah, there you go. So I think that's a big difference. You were not in high school the last time you were on the show. It's been long enough.
Really? I thought.
Wow.
I didn't I do one as a freshman? Wasn't I a
don't
freshman?
think
We did the
you were
Spider-Man?
supposed to,
I
and
feel
you
like were
bailed
here
on
and you were
us.
talking about.
Oh.
You were supposed to do the Harry Potter thing with
talking
us.
about Spider-Man on the Spider-Man episode.
Yeah.
Was that high
and,
school
like,
or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was here.
Okay, so you've at least been in high school since the last time you were on the show. Welcome back.
Good to be back.
Let's get to some nerd mail.
Nerd mail.
We've got some nerd mail this week, Rob, and it's multifaceted, and it's amazing.
Okay.
It also includes a subtle bag. So,
snaps.
first of all, we
We're
have...
starting beef?
I don't know about beef, but let's hope this person comes back at us. So we'll start with, we have Dr. Intern Joan here because she didn't believe us on our text chain, but we are getting amazing nerd mail saying, we love Dr. Intern Joan. We want more Dr. Intern Joan. So that's where this starts, saying that I really appreciate the way you are doing your nerd goals for 2025. And I have found a bit more motivation and really like what Joan and Rob are doing. Dr. Intern Joan is awesome. I want to hear more book recommendations. This may be a bit that we throw in.
Okay, Dr. Intern Joan.
This is crazy.
Yeah.
Super fan.
Yeah. And then every single podcast, please let her tell me what to read.
Wow.
Maybe,
Wow.
yeah, we may be coming up with a bit.
Well,
All
no,
right.
hang on. Joan, you have a Blue Sky account that is called What's Joan Reading, right?
Yes, on
And
Instagram
so
as
is
well.
that a place where someone could actually find out your book recommendations and what you're reading?
I am not using Blue Sky
Oh.
consistently yet, but my Instagram is what.is.joan.reading, and
There you go.
that'll outline all of it.
Okay.
It's actually pretty amazing. There's reviews on there. I really appreciate the graphics that Joan's putting up there that says, this is what I'm reading. What were the three categories? Nighttime reading, audiobook, and something else.
Then my Kindle or my advanced advanced reader copy
There you go.
obligation.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a great place to find out what Joan's reading. And also Joan is, you'll love this, Rob. Joan is using an app, I don't know which one, to track her reading. And I'll let her tell you which one. But just like board game stats monthly, she's like, for the month of January, I read 977,000 pages. She's got a graphic of it. Yeah, you've got to follow her. What app is it, Joan?
Stuff like that. What app is this?
It is called Storygraph, and I jumped the ship from Goodreads because Amazon, and I jumped onto Storygraph because it is women of color owned and operated.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Storygraph. But yeah, if you follow her on Instagram, you're going to get those cool insights posts once a month. How many books?
Joan, avid reader and influencer. I'm downloading an app right now.
Bam. How many books was it in the month of January?
As of this recording, so not for January, but for the first 1.5 months, 26 books this month.
What?
I know. I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry. It's amazing.
It's like there's not even that many days.
Includes February, and I was on vacation for a week in January, so
That's
there's
true.
a little leeway there.
Joan brought like a suitcase full of books for Girls Just Want a Weekend and like flew through them. Like every day we're back at the pool or the beach. It's like, oh, I started a new book.
Never mind. I'm deleting the app. I don't. That's not.
No, it's awesome. So more on this nerd mail. Let's see. On episode 63, Dr. Intern Joan mentions she sometimes gets lost playing games, and I want to share with her and all nerds the app ScreenZen. So this is not a sponsored. This nerd mail is not a sponsored. I like to say that out front, but
Listeners,
recommends
ScreenZen. 69.
Maybe we should be sponsored, but we're not. In this case, you can set time limits on the apps. You decide, you control. It gives you a streak if you follow that time limit. And then she said, streaking is fun. Let's go streaking. Once you hit your time limit, the screen turns black and you get the question, is this important? And you can choose to continue past your limit or not. So it doesn't cut you out. It just tells you like, hey, you've hit your goal limit. So you talk about nerd goals. It sounds like a really good way. I might do it too, because I'm finding myself in the mornings like running late to work because it's the only time that I can open up a game and play it. And then I'm like looking, oh my gosh, it's been 10 minutes. I have to go. So she was
gamifies your not being on screen.
It gamifies your goals. Right?
Oh, okay.
Right. If your goal is like, Apple gives us a weekly thing, like you've spent 5 hours on your device. If you have a goal of lessening that or playing your games a few times a week, which is one of the things Joan had mentioned in our goal setting, it's a way to gamify those goals to remove yourself from technology when and why you would need to.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. ScreenZen. Here's the subtle brag. It says, love the pod, but not as much as Bryn.
Nobody loves the podcast as much as listener Bryn.
We love you, Bryn. Shout back at us, podcast@nerdbestfriends.com. Respond to that brag. Okay, but tangent, can I rant for a second? I'm doing this Holly Gibney thing with Stephen King and trying to reread all the things before, but I'm doing audiobooks again. Hoopla doesn't have anything. And I've logged in under my Santa Barbara account and my Mendocino County account, and it does not have the Stephen King books I need. So I'm annoyed.
Wow.
That's all.
Okay.
I know, it's wild.
Consult your local library. What's going on?
Dr. Intern Joan, a hot tip. You can usually go to your library's page and request certain books. And I've never had my local library deny me a request. So
you
request your
it,
audiobooks.
The audiobooks, and then they alert you when it's available on Hoopla?
Absolutely.
Wow. Look at this.
Dude, libraries are awesome.
I love the library. Okay, that's a great tip. Thank you. I'm going to try it when we're done recording today, because I need to move on to End of Watch, because I'm not even halfway through the Holly Gibney, and I have till May. So when the new book
coming
comes out. All right. Dr. Intern Joan will be back at the end of the episode. For now, let's get to Talk Nerdy to Me. In today's Talk Nerdy to Me, we have Aaron, host of the Lore of the Rings podcast. This is Rob's best day ever, but welcome to the show, Aaron.
Hello, thanks for having me.
So glad that you were able to join us today and for having us on your show. Last month was so much fun. Listeners, if you haven't seen that, go find Lore of the Rings. Watch that interview where I talked about watching Fellowship of the Ring for the first time ever in my life. But Aaron, why don't you tell us about yourself, your nerd cred, things that make your nerdy heart beat?
Yeah, so I remember being a little kid walking through my public library, and I found this row of books that had a picture of a unicorn or a dragon or a castle sticker on all of the books. And I was like, that seems interesting. Pulled one off the shelf. Terry Brooks's, I think it was Talismans of Shannara. I read that and I thought, this looks amazing. Read it, thought it was so cool. My older brother, who is much more wise in the ways of nerddom, said, well, Terry Brooks, he basically just ripped off J.R.R. Tolkien and Lord of the Rings. And I was like, you did? What is this Lord of the Rings thing that you speak of? And he handed me the books that had been sitting on our shelves for years. And it was about the same time, too, where the Peter Jackson films were coming out in the theaters every single year. And I was target market as a young teenage boy with a birthday in the month of December. So my dad had the easiest birthday present for me 3 years in a row. Take me and a friend to go see the films, and then reading the books somewhere in between there. And I just remember there was a moment where Gandalf sort of leaves Frodo and Sam behind. They're like, well, I guess now we just walk to Rivendell with this really powerful, corrupt, evil ring sitting in my pocket. And I just remember that moment thinking, I'm hooked. I'm in. Are they going to make it? Are they not going to make it? Like, what's going to happen? And since then, it's just been a wild, wild world of exploring Lord of the Rings and Middle-earth. Of course, that expanded out into Star Wars, Star Trek. I think I've seen all the Star Trek stuff, all the Harry Potter, read that several times. Just love the world of fantasy and stories and the power that they can bring into our lives.
Well, you are in the right place, Aaron, and we very much thank you for joining us. And we'd like to hear about your show. We talked a little bit about how, in preparation, Analese watched the Fellowship of the Rings for the first time, and we'll get into how that went later. But this is what you do, right? This is you have found this calling to bring people into the Lord of the Rings books and movies for the first time. So talk about that and what you do on your show, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So my show is for the person who's probably somewhere in between where you are, Rob, and where you are, Analese, which is somebody who has seen the films and has not read the books and is maybe considering reading the books or is reading them for the first time. And I just try to take every week, it's just a 15-20 minute segment of here's what you can find in Lord of the Rings. And so my current project right now is I'm reading Fellowship of the Ring and taking just a very slow read through Fellowship of the Ring. So there, I take a chapter and I break it down, and it's actually, I even go a little bit closer, which is about every 4, 5, 6 pages or so, break that down into 15 minutes. And I say, okay, here's some of the new characters. Here's some of the themes that you're going to find. Here's what you probably saw in the films. Here's how it's a little bit different in the book. And just try to just take a slow reading through Fellowship of the Ring, point out details that you probably didn't see in the films, and also try to connect it. There's a vast system of lore that Tolkien created, world building, languages, thousands of years of history. That can be daunting for people. And I try to break that down to really, really simple. So it's like, okay, when Aragorn mentions Beren and Luthien, who are Beren and Luthien? And let me give you just a quick take on who they are, so that as you continue to engage with the story, you just have a little bit of a richer sense of the world that is going on and engage with the story at a deeper level.
It's something I really appreciate about the title of your podcast and the focus you have on it. It's one thing to be a fan of something. This isn't just a Lord of the Rings podcast. It is life and experience, and as you were just describing, in-depth look at world building and character building and its impact on our lives. I really appreciate that focus on your podcast.
Yeah, thank you. And it really resonates. The philosophy that Tolkien brings into his stories, to me, it's more than just stories of, swords and dragons and whatnot. Like those are fine and those are great, but there's that philosophy and worldview and just the depth that it can bring that I really love, that really resonates with me, and I really try to pull that out and share that with others.
I think there's so much there, and I think that there is what you're doing, which is to go through it slowly and to cross-reference different sources and those kinds of things. Or what's wonderful about the internet is you've done that for us, and what an easy and great way to digest that knowledge and get more from these stories that we love than to listen to Aaron talk about it in these little bite-sized chunks and not have to have the idea of like, well, maybe I could take a class, maybe I could really dive into the Silmarillion, maybe I could, or I could just listen to Aaron, a nice guy on the internet, explain all of this to me and give me that richer experience for something.
Yeah, and I would definitely hesitate to say, if you haven't read Tolkien, go read a little bit of Tolkien and then find a podcaster who can help guide you a little bit. I would never put myself up as a replacement for going and reading Tolkien's actual works. But yeah, if you want to dig into the Silmarillion, which most people have never even heard of the Silmarillion, but if you want to dig into that, it's tough, it's daunting, especially for first-time readers. And so the pattern that I try to take is go read a chapter and then come listen to a couple of podcast episodes. And then between the two of that, you can really engage with the story at a deeper level.
Very cool. Like, that's a super cool way to do it. And it is, I think that the next time I go through and read Lord of the Rings, I'm excited to do it again. That's how I'll do it, and use your show as a companion podcast. I did something similar a few years back when I went through the works of H.P. Lovecraft. It was like, read a story, listen to a podcast or two about that story to give me like the little bit of extra connections and those kinds of things and what was going on at the time. Read the next story, do the same thing. Like, those companion podcasts can really enrich a literary experience.
Exactly.
Thank you for talking nerdy with us. Can you tell our listeners where to find your podcast?
Absolutely. The easiest place you can go to find the Lord of the Rings podcast is go to ringspodcast.com/follow. And you can pick your preferred podcast player there, Apple, Spotify, Overcast, all the different things. But if you just go to ringspodcast.com/follow, you'll be able to find Lord of the Rings. And I invite you to come wander the world and works of J.R.R. Tolkien. Come wander Middle-earth with me.
Send in your deep thoughts, nerd questions, or talk nerdy to me subjects that you'd like us to cover by sliding into our DMs, or send those topics in an email to podcast@nerdbestfriends.com. And here's the moment everyone's been waiting for. We're going to talk about 1D&D, D&D 2024, D&D 6th edition, 5EEE, whatever it is called, and maybe we can start with that. What the heck is this version of D&D called?
So 1D&D is what they call the play test that they do. So it was 1D&D 10, 12 years ago when they were doing the play test for 5th edition, because the idea is like, oh, there's no editions of D&D. There's just D&D. And then they went through 1D&D and they said, okay, it's now Dungeons and Dragons. Everybody's like, yeah, but it's the 5th edition of Dungeons and Dragons. And they're like, no, there's no editions. We don't have edition problems anymore. It's just D&D, and it's always been D&D. And everybody's like, yeah, but we always say D&D 5e because it's different than the 4th edition. And so like that happened.
It used to be that they would print out for the 5th edition of Dungeons and Dragons on books, and then as they went, they eventually kind of phased out that edition specific language.
Right. It even became a thing where they just gave into it and just started calling it 5 little e and stuff, and it would even be in the books. So now the playtest, they did the same thing again, 1D&D. Well, the playtest is over, so now it is officially the 2024 edition of D&D, which is not going to last, right? So if you look at the catalog, it's like, oh, this book is compatible with the 2024 edition. Oh, get the new 2024 handbook. It's going to very soon change to 6th edition. Like, it is the new edition. It's 6th edition. I'm calling it 6th edition. I think we call it 6th edition from here on out.
A couple years ago, I visited my college roommate in Atlanta, and I had we were like maybe halfway through the campaign, the big More Sane campaign, so maybe about 2021, 2022, somewhere on there. I flew to Atlanta, and I'm hanging out with one of my college roommates, Tiffany. She's got a bunch of nerd friends. This is where I played Wingspan for the first time. A really great game. I had never played it before. We played board games. It was their son's first birthday. I was like, yeah, I want to meet your son. I had a really good time. You play D&D? Yeah. Which edition? D&D.
Oh, my
but what
God.
edition did you play? And I was like, the one that my friend runs.
It's the one right now.
I was like, they're like, no, which edition? And eventually her husband was like, well, do you have things like inspiration and da-da-da? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, oh, you're playing 5e. And I went, okay, sure. That's my story.
What do you know what edition they played though? Like, so I know if I can
I didn't know to ask.
Yeah,
I
right?
was just like,
oh, it hasn't been.
No, he's like,
fun fact for you, in the middle of 3rd edition, it got so complicated, they did like a reset. And so we had 3rd edition, and then they had 3.5 as it was known.
And then they had Pathfinder on top of that, which is D&D 3.5, but different.
3.5.
No, that has nothing to do with it.
No, Pathfinder is D&D 3.5.
Yes, but it's not by the same company. It's not an edition of Dungeons & Dragons.
Yes, but it is.
You're going to confuse Analese.
I'm already confused. It's okay. There's 3.5, and then there was 4, and now there's 5, and there's 5e, and now there's 5e plus, or 1D&D, or
start calling it 6th edition.
We'll call it 6th edition. But the reason why our episode today is titled what it is because when I did a search to make sure I'm calling this right, there were 6 different answers in a Google search, including from the company itself.
Well, and that was one of the things that they've also already walked back. Like, as things were coming out, it was, oh no, it's just an update to D&D. It's the 2024 update. Everything's going to still be compatible. You can use your character from the 2014 D&D right next to a character from the 2024 D&D. And then the book came out and everybody's like, yeah, if you want to be underpowered and sucky, why would you do that?
We even noticed that in our games, since we use D&D Beyond, that we can actually see now side by side the legacy, which is the 5th edition, and what the new things are, and that's been interesting in our games. But let's get into it. Let's talk D&D. And I know we have Andrew on here, and this may be a spoiler, but Andrew, you are running a 6th edition game right now, right?
Yes.
All right.
So about a month ago, I was like, you know what? I've been getting all these books. I've been getting all these fancy variant covers. I'm going to put them to use. So I am currently running a homebrew campaign, but with the updated 2024 books. We've played about 3 sessions now, so we're just kind of getting into things, but I think it's given me still more of like a first-hand perspective on how all of these new rules actually play out and how they look in a real game, because there's definitely a difference I've found between reading a rule off a page and then actually seeing how it interacts in a game.
Ooh, 100%. Yeah, I can't wait to hear more, for sure.
So are you finding it easier, or are you finding you're forgetting a lot of things? Because like you said, reading it off the page, or like what I've been doing is like watching all the D&D podcast releases and stuff on YouTube and things. So like, I feel like the list of changes is very long, and how am I going to remember all these things?
Right.
But how is it when you play? Is it
the thing that I found when I play is that like, I think it's made me, it's fun. It's put me back in a setting that I haven't been in when I'm DMing for a long time, which is not knowing every rule. Cause like when I was a kid, I fell asleep reading the player's handbook and reading the Dungeon Master's Guide. And so I have a very good knowledge of the legacy 5th edition rules, but when I'm running the game, usually someone will ask, does my cunning action do this? And I'll go, no, it doesn't do that. And then I'll go, well, actually, maybe check the book because it might be slightly different now. Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, you could take that as it's slowing down the flow of the game, but I don't think it really takes away that much or like uses up that much time, because it's just a rule check. Like, you just open the book, find it in the table of contents, and...
Now, are your players using D&D Beyond for their character sheets?
Yes.
So that should all be updated and stuff. They made their characters.
Yes. So they can also check in the book, or they can just find the feature in there and read it.
Right on. Okay, so the reason we waited so long to talk about this is because we were waiting for all 3 books to come out so that we could go through, there's always, every edition has the trilogy, the Player's Handbook, the DM's Guide, and the Monster Manual. That's been consistent since probably 2nd, right? So all of those are out. We've poured over them. We've gone through them. We've played some games. So that's where we're at. So I think we start talking about what we like and start diving in. Let's start with the Player's Handbook. Analese, you have a Player's Handbook.
I have one.
What do you think of it?
I mean, it's the first one I have, so I have no comparison, but I will say it is very cool to see everything organized the way it is. The artwork is obviously really great, and it's twofold for me, right? I hesitated buying a Player's Handbook because we waited so long for this new edition, and it didn't make sense to go spend $60 on one that was about to be outdated. So I've been waiting. I have glimpsed at the Player's Handbook in PDF form in D&D Beyond in the campaigns that you run. So I'd look at it for reference, but I didn't ever take time to sit and look at it. So just like we were saying when we guested on the Lord of the Rings podcast, I'm actually grateful that I waited this long to watch Lord of the Rings, because it spoke to me in ways through D&D that I may not have gotten from the movie before. I'm going to say the same about the handbook. I think if I had been handed the handbook first before playing, I might not have ever really gone into D&D and play it like I do now, because it can be overwhelming. Yeah. So now I'm looking at it going, oh, this makes a lot more sense when I played Arcool for 3 years, why these things were happening to this character. Just knowing some things about it now makes it more tangible, but I really appreciate the way it is organized. I appreciate how gorgeous the artwork is. I appreciate that the language is in there, and I don't know if they did a lot of contextual changes, but it reads really easy to understand, which was always my fear, that I was going to open this textbook and basically it's going to be in this technical language that I would not be able to decipher on my own. I don't feel that way when I read this newest version of the handbook.
Oh, good. Right. Did you notice that your 1 through 20 campaign inspired the whole thing, and now the monk picture is a picture of Arcool in the...
I geeked out at that very much and went, oh my gosh. Because you know what's funny about that? We had to get little minis for our in-person finale, right? I could not find a Dragonborn monk like anywhere. I went to stores, I went online. This is way before we heard about only games.
Right.
I couldn't even find a file for you to print one for me because apparently it was a pretty unique pairing. I could not find one.
Yeah.
I ended up having to use a monk character that had a dragon mask on. I had to cut off his ponytail and stuff to make it look like our cool. But now that picture, I'm like, yes, finally.
Finally. Like, that's my guy. No,
Yeah,
I love
it.
the book. I think it's, I've had them all, and this one is beautiful. And it is easy to read, even to the point where I was looking at them side by side. The font's a little bigger in this one. Just a little bit nice looking. The art is incredible. I picked up the book tabs that you can get, like some company made from Amazon. I have never had a more enjoyable experience than putting these tabs in. They're pre-labeled. It even tells you what page to put them on. So as you're going through, you know exactly where to go. They're color-coded. I usually, and I don't have mine here, but I always do that myself, right? I have like the little book tabs and I like tab stuff. I go through my adventures. But Analese.
Okay, so if we don't put this up, if we don't put this video up, what Rob is holding up is his variant cover edition of D&D. Mm-hmm. Everything on the inside is the same, right? It's just the variant cover.
Yeah, just the cover's different.
And he has those little tabs that you would have in your school binders, but they are pre-printed for sections and organized so that you can, I imagine if you were looking at monsters, or I guess this is not the monster book, but if you were looking at something that you needed, it's labeled in there, pre-labeled. You found on Amazon. That's amazing.
Yeah, so the old one had that too. Like I had, and in fact, I think it was WizKids made the tabs for the 5th edition book. They're not as nice.
Okay. All right.
So these are like unofficial. I don't remember who made them. I just searched for Player's Handbook tabs on Amazon. I look, I'm like, well, let's give them a try. They're amazing.
Some nerd already did it for you.
Like, I feel like call to action, go get these book tabs for your Player's Handbook. They're gorgeous.
We'll put a link up.
So beyond the physical book itself, and there are a lot of things to notice about it. It's big, it's chunky, it's easier to read. The artwork is incredible. It's got all new art, no repeats from 5th edition and stuff. It's just gorgeous. And also, you know, they've definitely have bragged about how inclusive it is, right? The art doesn't look like art from the 90s anymore, right? There's all kinds of different shapes and sizes and colors of peoples and species and all kinds of stuff like that.
If this is not the nerdiest thing you did this week, Rob, you put in some videos or texts about the new edition into Notebook FLM?
Notebook
is it FLM?
LM.
LM.
Not FLM. FML.
FML, yes, and created a 17-minute podcast for us to listen to before this episode. So I listened to it, and I do see one of the notes here that they've done something more in this edition to when you choose your character's background, there are some boons or some bonuses, and maybe Andrew can speak to this a little bit more, but I found that really interesting in that Notebook LM podcast that it came up with, that you're choosing the different things is now offering more to your character than just choosing a background.
So in Legacy, in 5th edition, whenever, you know, if you were in D&D Beyond, you were going by the step-by-step character, you'd get to background and it'd be like, well, what's my background? It's like, well, it's what you did before you were adventuring. And it's like, okay, and your background maybe gave you, I mean, if you were lucky, it gave you a skill proficiency or a language. If you weren't lucky, it gave you, I don't know. A trinket,
a set
and
of dice,
cartographer's tools, and they all had a more role-playing focused ability. So if you were a criminal, you had a criminal contact. If you were a sailor, you had ship access and that kind of thing, which is cool. And it's like, it's flavor, and you know I love flavor. Guy Fieri up in here, but there was definitely always kind of a disconnect between how do I
Flavor Town D&D.
Yeah, welcome to Flavor Town.
And now in D&D 6th edition, backgrounds play a much bigger role because every background determines your ability score improvements. First off, so that is no longer tied to your species. Elves no longer have more dexterity than dwarves have constitution, etc. Your ability score improvements are based on your background. Your background also, as I think this was in 5th edition as well, determines some of your starting equipment as well as some skill proficiencies. And each background comes with a feat. So now, instead of getting 1 or 2 proficiencies and a flavor ability, you have ability scores and feats and starting equipment and skill proficiencies and tool proficiencies. And so it feels more impactful, and it feels like my character's story is vastly different if they grew up as a hermit or as a noble or a soldier or something like that. Like, that is a clear and defined part of my character's identity, not just in the roleplay, but in the actual mechanics of the game as well.
So that's good that you pointed that out, because that is a very big change from the other editions. Starting from the very first fantasy tropes, right, based on Tolkien and based on, whatever, it was always based on the character, right? If you're a dwarf, you're stocky and tough. If you're an elf, you're thin and lithe and dexterous. If you're a human, you're kind of a balance of both kind of things. And this was an idea of like, but what if I want to be a tough elf? What if I want to be a nimble, acrobatic dwarf, right? They don't have dwarves in the circus. I can't have a high dex. What's going on? I think this helps that. What I'm worried about, or what I'm interested to see, is with the mechanics of the game, does this affect it in a funky way where you're going to sit down at the table, and because one of these backgrounds gives you a certain combination of ability scores and feats that are more powerful than other ones, it's like, hey, I'm the wizard and I'm also a sage background. Oh yeah, I'm a fighter and I'm also the sage background. Yep, and I'm a rogue and I have the sage background. Like, I don't know what background it is, but is there going to be a thread where it's like, well, that's the best one, so everybody's that now?
I mean, it's kind of like that as it is right now, right? You could purposely choose a race or a class that benefits you in one way or another. Again, I'm coming from a different angle, right? Some of those choices in the past, I remember sitting there thinking, and I really appreciate your explanation here, Andrew, because I was sitting here thinking, like, why does it matter that I pick one of these things? It's not changing. When I click on this in D&D Beyond, it's not changing anything about me. So the only thing that seems to matter for is my background story to help the storytelling and the role playing. But now there are, I'll use the word consequences to these choices. It does seem more legit.
Very important, yeah.
And I think, to your point, Dad, I think that's reasonable, but I think it's kind of always been that way. Like, even with when ability scores and things like that were tied to species, the metagaming thing to do was always to be a variant human.
Right, because you get 2 feats.
Right. And, like, if you look at our Icewind Dale campaign, like, that game is mostly variant humans.
Everybody chose variant humans.
And it's like, yes, that is a way to build mechanically a powerful character, but also it's given that game a lot of interesting flavor as well, which I don't think should be discounted.
I wonder if in 6th edition, because of the 10 years of 5th, if we've maybe moved away from some of that min-maxing. I don't know, because I kind of only play with the same people, like what's going on in the meta, what's going on at the stores, what's going on, stuff. But like, because of the way D&D was, especially like when it came out, it was a tabletop miniature game, basically. So you want it, and it was very much, even through 1st and 2nd, it was very much DM versus player. The DM's trying to kill you with the monsters, so you have to be, you have to min-max to make sure that your character is the way it is. Same thing with 4th edition. It was so focused on your power combinations and, the different things that you could do and activate and combinations. 5th edition wasn't like that. 5th edition, I think why it's a lot of people's favorite edition is because you could play and have a good time with more character driven, with the character you want to play. I like that a lot, and I like that there's these new options where it's like, okay, I look at this background and it inspires me somehow to be like, okay, but what if that sage background, what if I was a Goliath? And I, you know what I mean? Like, kind of break the mold there, but also this and that. And I think the art in this book inspires that as well. Yeah, like, you go through the art and you see some giant half-orc, and he's, like, holding a delicate flower with a chipmunk on his shoulder or something, because he's this half-orc druid, and that's not something that is a classic trope. So I think they're trying to unlock that, and I'm hoping that more often than not, you're putting together a combination of a character you want to roleplay, and not, well, it's gotta be the best, so let me, min-max it.
I agree that our perspective is only as wide as, like, the amount of people that we play with.
Yeah.
But definitely, like, in the game that I'm playing right now, like, there's a lot of humans, there's a human wizard, there's a human warlock or whatever, but, like, we have a dwarf rogue.
Cool.
And it's like...
Oh, interesting.
It works. It makes sense. Like, it's this nimble little dwarf lady, and, like, she is, like, an assassin and a thief, and, like, she's really cool at it. And it feels like, I don't know how the player feels, how she feels playing it. But from my perspective, I feel like it used to be that you could make those cool kind of combinations, but you would be kind of punished by the rules for it. Like,
Yes.
you could be a dwarf rogue for sure, but like the dwarf abilities from the dwarf species want you to play in this way, and the abilities from the rogue want you to play in a different way, and they don't really match. And as we were saying before, like even though like ability score improvements aren't tied to species, the species still get like very cool and powerful abilities still.
And that was something that you were saying when we were talking earlier, like the species now, it's not your stat bonuses or it's not the proficiencies or whatever that you automatically get. It's these different kind of powers.
Yes. This ties into a broader theme that I've detected with 2024 that we can talk about in a second. But everything makes the characters feel, and a little bit on paper, but feel more powerful. Mm-hmm. In 5th edition, you know, if you were a dwarf, you had, like, advantage on checks about, like, stone cutting and architecture. And it's like, well, that's kind of lame. In 2024, dwarves have tremor sense and can place a hand to the ground and feel, like, the movements of things around them in a cavern. Before, if you were a Goliath, you'd be like, okay, all Goliaths can, like, resist a little bit of damage when they get hit. In 2024, if you're a stone giant Goliath, you can resist damage. But if you're a cloud giant, you can teleport. Or if you're a storm giant Goliath, you can have lightning powers. Like, it's overall, I think 2024 shifts the focus of Dungeons & Dragons from high fantasy to heroic fantasy.
Oh, that's an interesting take. Okay.
Thesis statement.
That's my thesis statement, is that the game design is less we are like these adventurers and we're fighting scary monsters, and more we are powerful heroes in this world, and we are venturing forth with all our abilities to save the day.
Well, so that sounds like a good shift for us into the next piece of our conversation, because then that's going to change how the Dungeon Master runs the game. So let's talk about the DM guide, which I have no input. I don't have one. I've never run a game. Tell us about the updated Dungeon Master's guide and what your thesis there is, Andrew. How does that shift how we run games?
Yes. The most important thing to remember about the Dungeon Master's guide is that if you are like us and you want to collect the variant covers of the 2024 books, you are out of luck, because variant covers for the Dungeon Master's Guide are impossible to get. They're not in in-game stores unless you want to drop $1,000 bajillion on eBay. You're out of luck. No variant cover for you. So we do not have a physical version of the Dungeon Master's Guide.
Not yet.
I'm
watching prices on eBay till they're reasonable, but they're actually, believe it or not, they're actually going up. So a Dungeon Master's Guide costs $50 in the store. We missed that weekend. I was out of town or something and got there and I'm like, hey, do you have any of these left? He's like, oh no, we sold out right away. I'm like, okay. So I went on eBay. I'm like, okay, they're $75. But eBay has that thing where it's like, okay, they're $75, but then it's like $38 shipping.
Right.
I'm like, well,
right. That's how they
okay,
get
maybe we'll see if they go down. So I have these alerts and I'm like, I haven't gotten any notifications about price drops on these books anymore. I went and looked. Now they're $110 plus $35 shipping. So
right.
I'm waiting for that curve to go up and then drop again, because I definitely want to get all the variant covers this time around. So, you know, we've got it on D&D Beyond, and that's where we're looking at it and stuff. And yeah, it's definitely the best DM's guide there's ever been.
Yes.
In the sense that I think it's an actual DM's guide.
Yes. That's the thing that I noticed as well. The original DM's guide opens with, this is a Dungeon Master, and this is the cosmology of the planes. And this is all of the lore. And back in 47 BCE, the 7th Troll Wars took place, and this and this and this and this and this. And if my friends picked up the starter set from Target, and they made me DM, and I'm like, well, I've never done this before, let me pick up the DM's guide. And I open the first page, and it's like, this is how you structure an adventure based on a town. And here's a table you can roll on to see how many people live in the town. I'm like, this sucks. This isn't going to help me.
Yeah.
I'm running the starter set from Target in 2 days. I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
This DM's guide opens with the basics. What does a DM do? How to prep for a session. What that example of play that they do. The second chapter is running the game. There are things like, group size and resolving outcomes, advantage and disadvantage, consequences, actual things that when you are running a game you have to refer back to constantly. And then it gets into
all the tables and charts and stuff,
tables
right?
and charts and things like that. It is, like you said, it is an actual DM's guide. It is a guide on how to be an effective dungeon master.
Usually the DM's guide, like, you always want the DM's guide because that's where all the cool treasure and all the items and the prices and all this stuff is. Honestly, for the last 2 editions, I've used the second half of the DM's guide more than anything else because that's where all the tables and charts are. Would I dabble into, like, oh, you know, let's read about the gods because maybe I have a character that's interested in that, or I could, you know, read about the planes of existence because of whatever. But it was mostly a reference book or whatever. The other stuff was very, very much for world building and for dungeon masters that, you know, wanted to create their own universe and those kinds of things, and like very detailed. And I think that's very influenced from like the authors and stuff that they had at the time, like your Ed Greenwoods and things like that. This book, chapter 1 and chapter 2, teach you how to be a dungeon master. It's like, finally, there is a book where you could sit down and read. I mean, and not that much. I mean, sure, it's a big book. I was looking to see if it had page numbers on here, but of course it doesn't because it's just one long PDF. But chapters 1 and 2, if you want to start running games, or like you got that starter set whenever it comes out and you ran through it and you're like, wow, I really like this. I'd like to try to do more. You could actually pick up the DM's guide, read the first 2 chapters and be like, oh, I get this. I'm ready to go. Or, you know, that plus the videos and stuff you're going to watch on how to do it. But for the first time, it really does set a tone of this is a teaching book. This is a guide.
Definitely.
And so it sounds like they restructured how it all sits. And I imagine as you're going through a game now, using like a glossary or a list of what you need to look up in that moment is a lot easier to navigate than a book that's half lore and storytelling and then half of the things you need to play a game.
Now, speaking of lore, like, yes, you're right. And the other thing that this book does is it recognizes that this is the 50th anniversary of this game and there's a ton of lore. It also recognizes that there's going to be a lot of new players, right? And how do we get into this? So this book has a lore glossary that basically goes through and explains or like has entries for famous D&D things throughout history. Right? There's nobody who's coming to this game and looking for a guide who has already read 25 R.A. Salvatores, memorized the adventures from every edition, remembers playing module M13 in 1984. Like, not a lot of people have that anymore. Right. But there is this zeitgeist that's grown around it, right? Lots of people do, because 50 years is a long time, right? That's generational. So now you can go to this book and you can look at the lore section and it'll tell you, like, hey, you know, you've heard of Tiamat, right? Or you've seen that 5-headed dragon in the cartoon. Here's a couple paragraphs about Tiamat. Here's a couple paragraphs about Drizdowarden. Here's a couple paragraphs about Mordenkainen, Tasha, all these characters that have like book titles and all this kind of stuff, you know, because you're looking at the spell. How come I have this spell called Bigsby's Hand? Well, you could go to the lore document and read, oh, who was Bigsby and why was that a thing? So like you can go to that source in that chapter and get a bunch of that background without having to feel dumb. Like, oh, well, I'm new and everybody's talking about all this stuff that I guess I should know and I don't. So there's a barrier there. They've tried to do this good job of, if you're hearing these names and don't know what they mean, we've got a reference for you. If you're super into it, you could look through that and then go do more research if you wanted. So I appreciate that as well. And again, really goes to that philosophy of like, if it says guide on the cover, it should be a guide.
Yeah, that's a good point. And do you think it accounts for the fact that, you know, it is 50 years later and there is just a whole lot more high fantasy out there than there was in the 70s, right? There's more books, more movies, more in this genre is so robust. You know, the big campaign you and I talk about, you took pieces out of different books and an idea and you created that fictional town. So you needed a guide more than you needed a book to tell you the lore and all the things. So it sounds like they're accounting for that.
Yes, it does both.
Edition.
Yeah.
Before we move off the Dungeon Master's Guide though, Andrew, the thing that I'm most curious about, and I hope you have an answer, is the encounter building. because encounter building has to do with, or at least it makes sense to me, that it has to do with math. There has to be a crosswalk or some kind of rubric to use where it's, okay, I have 4 characters of 4th level. What monsters can they fight where it's not going to be too easy and it's not going to be too hard? And what math uses that? So in other editions, they've used like experience. So creatures have an experience value. And it'd be like, okay, you have 4 players of level 4. They can fight up to 1,200 experience points worth of monsters. Okay. And so then you'd go through your monster manual and be like, oh, okay, cool. Well, I want this to be an orc encounter, so I can use 6 orcs. That will equal 12,000 points or whatever. And that's very clunky because it doesn't always work out right and those kinds of things. 4th edition did it in completely different as far as they're like, okay, well, some monsters are leaders. Some monsters are brutes. Some monsters are minions. Some monsters are solo. Like they put a tag on all the different kinds of monsters. And then not only would they give you a number, okay, 4 4th level characters can fight this many numbers, but it would give you a suggestion of you need a leader, a brute, and 4 minions. Or if it's a solo, it's a solo and you could bump it up from there. And so you could organize that for your encounters and be like, oh, okay, well, for a higher level character, get a leader, 4 brutes, 10 minions, like those kinds of things. And so you'd fill it in that way. 4th edition was the only time they did that. So then 5th edition, they changed that to combat rating or challenge rating, CR. And so then it was like, okay, you've got 4 characters of 4th level. And then there was some kind of very complicated math about finding the challenge rating and filling it in. And I never really got it. I just used digital tools. So please.
Encounter building in 2024, I was initially kind of disappointed. Because I opened up the monster manual and I looked at the stat blocks, and in big, bold letters, right there near the top, under the stats, was challenge rating. Okay. It's back again. You still got challenge rating. Challenge rating, the reason why I don't like challenge rating is because it feels so arbitrary. What is a CR3 monster? Well, it could be a brass dragon wormling, or a hag, or 7 goblins. And it's like, on paper, these are all supposed to be the same difficulty of encounter. But in practice, the hag is going to get swarmed, but the goblins have the action economy, but the brass dragon can fly. So it's like, it's not really numerical in that way. And I looked at this, and it still had CR, and sure enough, if I plugged the CR back in like the old CR calculator I always use when playing encounters, it all still works the same. And so it's like, sure, I don't have to think when I'm making encounters, like I can still do it on autopilot the way I'm used to doing, but I was kind of hoping that there would be something different. And then I took a bit of a closer look, and I realized, oh baby, 4th edition is back.
Okay.
I have the goblins page open right now.
All right.
And there's not just one CR1 4th goblin stat block. There are 4. There's a goblin minion.
Aha!
There's a goblin warrior. There's a goblin hexer. And there's a goblin boss.
Okay.
And sure enough, as I was plotting, I was like, okay, I want to have this like super big, crazy encounter. I was like, well, I could get a tough, who's the criminal stat block, who's strong, and I could get a spy, who's the criminal stat block that shoots, and I could do a thug and 3 spies. And honestly, it's very cool.
That's so much fun.
I think some of that is taken from 4th edition. Yeah. I think some of that is also taken from Baldur's Gate 3. Because that's how all the encounters in Baldur's Gate 3 works. In Baldur's Gate 3, there's a hobgoblin, and there's 3 goblin archers, and 2 goblin spellcasters.
Right.
And that's how it's laid out. And Baldur's Gate is very good with designing encounters and designing challenging and interesting combats. And I think some of that gameplay vision has been transferred over here with this idea of different types of monsters. Now, not all monsters get the goblin treatment, right? Sure. There's only 2 types of bugbears. There's only like 1 type of imp or whatever.
For now.
But I think mainly if you like adopting this mindset in 2024 or in, I think, any kind of combat focused RPG of thinking about like, well, if the default for an adventuring party is having people who all do different things, why should the monsters not also be able to do different things?
Yes.
I was just thinking that allows you as the DM to flavor the characters that they're encountering
Exactly.
a lot more than just here's some goblins.
If I'm a hobgoblin general and I'm making my goblin army, I'm not going to train all of my goblins to have a shield and a short sword.
Right.
I want goblins who can sneak around in the trees and be archers. I want some goblins to be able to cast some spells. I want some goblins to be able to be up front and stab people. Like, it makes you as the dungeon master get to have more planning and have more like levels and textures to a combat. And then you throw that to the players, and they're like, "Oh, we have to think about this differently,
Right?
Because different things
More
are
tactically.
happening. More tactical, yes." And I think that the mindset there is very helpful for encounter building, even if it's still CR based.
Yeah. That's wonderful. And it sounds like so much more fun. Like, I mostly run games and I love my monsters. I love designing these encounters. And that was something I really loved about 4th edition was, like you said, I'm putting together my own 5-man band of wizard and undead, or my goblins, or my orc tribe, or whatever. And I really enjoyed that. So it sounds like that's back. And it sounds like I was just looking in the wrong place, because I was looking at the Dungeon Master's Guide for the encounter building because I had heard, oh, it's going to be so much more fun and it's going to be different. But really where that difference comes in is the monster manual.
And I don't know if that idea of building encounters based on like roles of the monsters, I don't know if that's present in the Dungeon Master's Guide necessarily. Like, I don't know if that's written out anywhere, but that is, at least for me, when I'm reading the monster manual, that's what I think the implication here is that monsters can do different things. Monsters should be doing different things.
Right.
In a combat.
I love it. I think that's going to be probably the most fun for me running games is making my monster groups.
Well, let's talk about the Monster's Guide or the Monster Manual. Monster Manual.
Okay, Monster Manual. Where is it? You've got it right
now.
here. If you open up to the first page,
it's big.
We'll pass the glossary. Boom. First page. How to use a monster. And it's got a picture of a monster stat block, and it's got numbers and stuff to be like, this is what this means, this is what this means. Believe it or not, that's the first time I've ever seen that chart. There's never been a how to read a monster stat block instructions. You were just supposed to intuitively figure it out.
That's wild. 50 years and they finally give you instructions. Okay.
Years.
Using, I should say, a resource that is not very intuitive at all.
No, absolutely not.
The first time you see a monster stat block, you have no idea what you're looking at.
You're just looking at numbers and categories and you're like, what?
And a ton of abbreviations and parentheses, and how come sometimes it's in italics and sometimes it's bold? It's like, finally, that is explained. And as someone who loves monsters, when I look at these new stat blocks and I see the improvements that they've made to it, it makes me very happy.
Well, I don't have the monster manual. Obviously, I've never run a game, so I don't have anything comparatively. To me, I'm listening to this and going, I mean, I'm making some grand assumptions having never run a game. So what's been in my head this whole time is like, wow, I always thought when you're running a campaign, it tells you what monsters they run into. And it sounds like you can build an encounter based on a couple of variants of what they run into. And the books have not been intuitive to tell you what those are and make it really difficult to build. So you're doing a lot more work as a DM than I assumed was the case. But now they've created these books in this newest edition to help you build those encounters and make those choices to flavor the game a lot more. And yeah, I'm kind of baffled at the fact that you didn't have this is how you read a stat block for monsters. And wow, first of all. But I'm very excited that you're excited, because I do note that in the games you have run that I played in, that sometimes we kind of screech to a halt when you're looking in multiple books to try to figure out, especially when the players do something creative. Well, I want to, stand on this rail and shoot the window over here and have my spell ricochet off and around the corner. Like, when someone comes up with something really creative, it's like, oh my gosh, look through multiple books. Let me look at this. Let me look at that. How do we flavor this to make this happen? It sounds like a lot more of that is given to you, so the game can flow a little bit easier.
It's always worth it. But the biggest thing that I struggle with, because I'm a prepper, right? I prep my things. I try to get everything ready ahead of time. The worst thing that can happen is when the party splits, or they move to a thing around the corner, and now all of a sudden I've got my one combat set up with all my monsters and the initiative and all this kind of stuff, and then they also open up another room, and now I've got to have 2 tabs open with 2 things and do the initiatives track and how am I going to stuff. That's where it really gets me, and a lot of that is because of my over prep. But for instance, you know how when you're a character and we roll initiative, you have a box that says initiative, and it gives you your bonus. You roll your 20, and you add that. Monsters don't have that.
Oh.
Until now. In this book, they actually have the initiative of the creatures. So it gives you the bonus. If you want to roll it, you can roll it, and it tells you this creature has a +2, this creature has a -1, whatever it is. Or they just give you a number. The initiative, it's going to be 12. Just put in 12.
Okay.
Right? First time, 50 years, we actually have an initiative stat for monsters. I think that's not, maybe in second edition, I don't remember. The other thing is, on your character sheet, you have your stats and your stat bonuses. You also have a separate place on your character sheet where it has your saving throw bonuses, because those are different, right?
Right.
Never had that before in Monsters. You just
so much more is
use
making sense that you've looked in like multiple books for things when we've done specific spells. Like, I don't know what the
looking in multiple books as much as it is just kind of winging it, right?
Well, what it used to be that if monsters had proficiency, or if they were extra good at a save, that would be listed.
Right.
But otherwise, you just had to be like, oh, well, I guess if it's a dex save, I have to check if it has proficiency with dexterity, and then if it doesn't have proficiency with dexterity saves, I just have to look at the stat bonus instead, because it's not different then. It's only different when it is different, and when it isn't different, it's the same.
Right. So you're doing all this thinking instead of now it just has it right there on the thing. Strength.
Now you can be more immersed in the game instead of constantly trying to be 2 steps ahead of your players, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
it'll just be right there. That's a huge benefit for running the game and running those encounters.
I wanted to ask about, this is off of, again, the Notebook LM podcast that you said, here, listen to this, since I don't have all the books. It talks about gender non-binary, and it confused me. Obviously, this is an AI-generated podcast that I listen to, but it said both that the book and the art does a lot more about not necessarily having to label a gender on things, and especially monsters, so you don't have to... I mean, it takes away some of the clunkiness of having to assign a gender to your monster that's interacting with your party. And also it says the artwork has feminine and masculine versions of these monsters. So like, I'm confused about which it means when it says that. So somewhere along the line, someone said that. You
put the thing together. I saw that on the note sheet, and I was like, I didn't notice any gender specific like language in the book. And I started flipping through it, and it seems the same as it was. And I don't know if this is actually how it was previously, but the way that it is now, it's like every monster stat block is a monster. The pronoun is always it. Yeah. Because it's a monster. It's a thing. It's an obstacle more than anything. And then you can build, if you want to, you can build character and gender on top of that. But I don't think there's any,
I wish I would remember which one it said. It said there was a particular type of monster that didn't have a gender assigned to it. And
So, first of all, when you look through the art, there's way more women and people of color in the artwork in the thing, right? So it's not just with the monsters, because a lot of times in the monster manual, there will be pictures of the monster attacking an adventuring party, right? Mm-hmm. Or there's some monsters that kind of look humanoid or whatever. There's way more women and people of color in those scenes and in that artwork. But as far as the gendered thing goes, in previous editions, there were certain monsters that were always this or that, right? So for instance, mermaid. There would be a mermaid stat block. And then as editions went by, there was a mermaid stat block and a merman stat block because they're different. Now it's just merfolk. For instance, succubus. A succubus is a sexy temptress devil lady, right? Well, now in the artwork, you get a sexy temptress devil lady and a sexy tempter devil man, right? Okay. Like those kinds of things of inclusion. Same thing, I think the example they brought up in the thing I sent you was the Sphinx. In old editions, there was like a Sphinx, which was a dude, and there was the Gyno Sphinx, which was the lady version of the Sphinx. Yeah. Why are they different? Now it's just Sphinx, and in the artwork, you see a dude Sphinx and a lady Sphinx. Just like the merfolk.
I guess maybe I just heard it wrong. Obviously, it's AI generated based off of what you plugged in there. It's not that they are becoming genderless, it's that they're becoming more inclusive of how you flavor your monsters. So you don't have merman and merman, dad, merman. It's merfolk. And you can just decide, is this going to be a tribe of men mermaid or women mermaid or whatever?
And really, it doesn't matter, right? Okay. So that's where that goes in.
I have a quick thing briefly to say on the monster manual, which about the art involved. I love D&D art. D&D art is amazing. I want it injected directly into my veins, just like Death Clock AI. Stick to the end of the episode to figure that one out. I time traveled from the future. I have knowledge beyond human understanding.
You've listened to this episode already?
I have listened to this episode already. It's all right.
What did listener Bryn think about it?
Listener Bryn... The art direction in the Monster Manual specifically is very interesting because, I mean, from what I can say, and this is like a generalization, I'm sure there are examples that don't fit. Every monster type has different art direction.
Oh, what do you mean?
For example, if you look in here, most of the fiends are 3D renders that have been painted on. And the thing about making them 3D renders is that there's more detail and more specific sculpting. So all of the fiends are a little bit scarier because all of their weird limbs and carapaces and wings are like fully rendered in detail. All of the fae are drawn. They look like they were drawn on parchment paper.
More sketchy.
And they're more like, they have more like use of pastels or things like. I have examples that I can't show on the audio podcast, but just to prove my point, look at this art of a Casme demon.
So this is a Casme demon on page 69.
Yes.
Nice.
And you can see this one doesn't look 3D rendered, but you can very see the detail and all like the different hairs and the point of the proboscis and the limbs and stuff. It's scary because it's so detailed and so rendered, and you can see like, oh, what is like that weird thing, or the limbs, or there's too many limbs. It's so weird. If you look at the sprite art in contrast on page, the little bookmark, look at how the sprites look.
That is totally different. Yeah, so it's a lot lighter. It's not as demony looking. It's almost like it's a completely different artist who's put that one together. Completely different style.
Look at the abominable Yeti and look at how different of a vibe that gives you just off of the art. And if that was rendered in the same style as a fae or as a humanoid or a celestial, you would get a different immediate vibe or a sense from it.
Our visual reaction to it is more helpful, especially, I imagine, as a DM, and you're trying to describe this monster to your party.
Yeah, and I think on the whole, the new Monster Manual is very good at showing you just enough of the monster and giving you just enough inspiration that you want to go out and make your own adventure based all around it. Like, that happened to me. I was flipping through this book and I saw the Banshee stat block. And I was like, that Banshee art looks super cool. Let me read the stat block. And I was like, oh, it's a good CR. Like, my level 2 party now could probably fight that. And I wonder what it does. Deathly Whale ability. And I'm like, that ability is super cool. Okay, I gotta put a Banshee in at some point. It starts with the art, and then the art draws you in. And then you look at the cool feature on the stat block and you go, that's awesome. I gotta
love it.
Add this into my game.
So have you done it already, or is that a spoiler alert for your players if they're
That's
listening
a
to the episode?
spoiler. If you're in listener Bryn, don't tell my D&D group about it.
You mean your D&D group don't subscribe to Nerd Best Friends? What are you doing, Andrew?
Absolutely not.
I was driving in the car with his friends the other day, and Andrew said something like, oh yeah, put that on your podcast. And they're all like, what do you mean podcast? And I'm like, are you kidding me? You guys come over to my house all the time and you don't know that I have a nerd podcast?
Bro.
We've been talking a lot about what we like about this book, and very encouraging. I'm very positive on the new edition. I think everything's looking really cool, but that's not what people come to a D&D podcast to learn about. They want edition wars. These grognards, the 4th edition was the best edition. It was like a video game. Oh no, 5th edition was the best edition. You guys are dumb.
Shampoo is better.
It was 2nd edition. It was advanced. Blah, blah, blah. They want the conflict, right? Mm-hmm. So what do we hate about this new 6th edition? What's gonna stir up the controversy? Put it in the title. D&D 2024. This time it's bad. D&D.
This time it's personal.
D&D 2024 was so bad, I lost my job and my house and my career.
It's too woke, Andrew.
D&D 20
is too woke.
D&D 2024, not the D&D we deserved, but the D&D that Kamala Harris wanted.
Oh, goodness.
The vibe is different. The vibe has shifted. Yeah. I mean, it is. They listened to their audience, and their audience and people who play this game insisted that it would be more inclusive and different and not rely on the same kind of tropes since 50 years ago, right? It had to update and change, and you can tell that they put in a very purposeful effort to make those changes and make those adjustments. Something else.
Hold on to your thought, because all I want to say to a response to what you just said is it also seems like they listened to the fact that they have so many new players coming in. So to arrange these things in a way that takes some of the burden or bulk off of learning how to play or learning how to run a game is huge, right? They have received a lot of new players from things like Stranger Things, but
Sure.
Some of those new younger players aren't going to read half of a book to figure out how to play D&D and want to know all the history. Let them discover it as they discover how to play. And it sounds like these are set up in a manner that allow people to do that and take some of those barriers away, especially if you're not into the fantasy genre or haven't been into it.
Yeah. Like the art now looks like people in the world and people who play D&D. And that's that makes sense because, you have to realize who the audience is. And forever the audience was, white dudes in Wisconsin, right? But it's not that way anymore. It's spread. It's worldwide. The DM's guide, I should have looked at, what it is, but I'm sure this player handbook is in the double digits of how many different languages it's printed in.
I'd be surprised if it wasn't. Yeah.
And that wasn't always the case. One thing, and I put this down here because I don't know, as much as they've updated on that end, there is this big nod to the beginnings of D&D in the sense that now the default setting or the setting of the adventures that it offers in the DM's guide are the world of Greyhawk. So in all through 4th edition and 5th edition, the default world was the Forgotten Realms. And that makes a lot of sense because there were so many novels and video games and stuff that all took place in the Forgotten Realms. And the Forgotten Realms is where Ten Towns and Icewind Dale and Phandalin and Waterdeep and Baldur's Gate, all of these exist in this world of the Forgotten Realms. But when D&D started, Gary Gygax's world was Greyhawk. It was a completely different, not completely different, it was a very similar, but it was a different setting. And the city names were different and the characters and monsters and stuff were a little bit different because it was this other setting. Much like how in our game, it was the town of Morsane and it was this very kind of Western fae. It was kind of North America in a way that we overlaid on top. We weren't talking about, we'll go up to Waterdeep and we'll go to Phandalin and we'll find Drizzt and Tiamat will be there. We didn't do that. It was its own world. So separate like that. And so now the default world in 6th edition is Greyhawk again as a nod to its beginnings. And so I've never played in the world of Greyhawk. I don't have that intrinsic, idea of who to find and what to do in Greyhawk. Mordenkainen's from Greyhawk. That's about all I know.
I'm sure he is.
So it kind of levels the playing field in that sense, and it's kind of this nod, but also I don't know, what can I say that's inflammatory?
Greyhawk.
Why did we spend 30 years reading books and learning about about Forgotten Realms just to throw it out?
Greyhawk, I don't like Greyhawk. I only like white and black separately. Don't put them together. Don't mix them. No Greyhawk. I like white eagles and black ravens only. No Greyhawk.
What a hot take. What a hot take.
Vibe has shifted.
Yeah, the vibe has shifted. So,
hey, look, we don't have to have a hot take on this. It's really just our take. And at the end of the day, we're going to keep playing D&D. That part's not going to change. And it just sounds like more positives to negatives that all the curmudgeons out there going, whatever.
I have to learn something new. I have to buy my books again.
I have to. And you
I'm
don't
excited
have to.
about buying new books. Yes.
You could stick with 5e and 5th edition and just keep playing your 5th edition.
Honestly, my 2024 game that I'm running is Forgotten Realms. And it's like the different homebrew version of Forgotten Realms that I've been running games in for a while. It's just rules.
Right.
There's no D&D police.
Are there more psionics in this book? Have you noticed?
I don't know if there are more. I think there's the same amount of psionics, if not maybe a little less.
Really? Okay. Because that was something that came up was more classes had options for psionic powers or there were more subclasses with psionics.
I think near the end of 5th edition they added all the psionic stuff.
Right.
And I don't think any of that, I don't think there's more of that. I think there's kind of just all of the psionic stuff, or some of the psionic stuff has been reprinted. I know that. There's still Soul Knight or Soul Knife Rogue. There's still Psi-Knight Fighter.
Oh, okay. So, but those were not in the original Player's Handbook of 5th edition. These are things that they've introduced right off the bat that are psionic characters.
And also, the thing about subclasses is that actually, that's the thing that I can talk about that I hate. Give me a second. For subclasses, every class has 4 subclasses.
Right.
By default. So if a class didn't have 4 subclasses in the player's handbook, Ranger had Hunter and Beastmaster.
Right.
But in this book, there's Hunter and Beastmaster and also other Ranger subclasses that were already printed. Or there are some new subclasses as well. A new version of what is accepted. Here's the thing that I hate. And this is something that genuinely grinds my gears.
Ooh, get 'em. Pop off, King.
2024. Okay. Every class gets their subclass at level 3.
Right.
I think that sucks. I think that's terrible. I think that's stupid.
Get 'em.
Listen, if I'm playing a paladin,
right,
or not a paladin, if I'm playing a cleric, when I'm making my cleric, I go, okay, I'm a cleric. I'm a cleric of Kelemvor, god of death, and I'm a death domain cleric. And I go and I roll up and I'm like, and I learn all about Kelemvor. And I have a sword, because Kelemvor had a sword, and my spiritual weapon is this thing, and I know all about Kelemvor. And it's like, well, you can't be a Death Domain cleric until level 3. So you have to schlub through 2 levels of just being a default cleric until your actual part of your character identity comes in. If I'm a warlock, the creature that I made my pact with doesn't come into play until level 3. And I'm just the same as every other warlock.
So you have to make that decision when you're making your character, because that informs so much of how you play it and where you're going to go. But you're not actually getting the stuff from it.
And there are some things where it's like, for fighter.
Well, okay, but let me play devil's advocate here, Andrew. It sounds to me like you have an option when you're going to run a game. Number 1, you start at level 1, and even if, you tell your players, right, you're going to get there eventually, but you're starting at a level where you're still learning who you are, and the game organically gets them to that point where they're then choosing their class. Or you start at level 3 and say, we're starting here, your background is, you've already done all these things. Is that not one of the options you can take when you're running a game?
You can always start at level 3. I think starting at level 3 is...
A lot of people do. That was something in 5th edition as well, was like, well, the game really starts at level 3. Don't bother with levels 1 and 2.
I remember that. It may not be the same thing you're saying, but I remember that very distinctly when I played our Cool, is that the first 2 levels were in, and then when I got to that 3rd level, there were some choices that I had to make that I sat through and read through every single option in order to make that decision on what I thought our Cool was.
Yes.
And that didn't bother me at the time because we started at 1.
I think that's true. I think starting at level 3 is very beneficial. I think starting at level 3 is good for shorter things. I think if you're doing a one-shot, just start at level 3. Just start at level 5, right? Mm-hmm. But for me, I think that they talk a lot on these D&D things on the D&D YouTube channel. They talk a lot about the fantasy of a class. Yeah. And it's when I'm playing a cleric, what do I want that to mean? When I'm playing a warlock, what do I want that to mean? And for me, when I'm thinking about a warlock, I'm thinking, oh, I'm a warlock. I made a deal with the devil. I want to have devil powers. Oh, I made a deal with an archfey. I want fey powers. But for 2 levels, I'm the same as every other warlock. Nothing makes me unique. Nothing makes me different except for the spells that I take. And there's not... I think the backgrounds do a good job of tying mechanics to flavor and to storytelling. And I think locking subclasses at level 3 causes a disconnect between mechanics and storytelling.
I think the idea is you don't want that barrier to entry or that decision tree starting for a brand new player at level 1, right? You just want to have it easy as possible. I want to be a fighter. Cool. This is what a fighter looks like. Get going. Later, if you really like your fighter, you can make these other cool decisions to customize it. Where if level 1, it's okay, I want to be a fighter. Okay, great. Now you're a fighter, but you have to choose what kind of fighter. And here's 16 different options. And it's it makes it more difficult to get going level 1 from that starter box, right?
But, that's in every video game ever.
It's also true.
I want to be this thing. True. Okay, cool. Do you want to be this kind of thing or this kind of thing? I want to be this kind of thing. Great. There you go. And especially because there are only 4 subclasses, I agree. If I was playing a cleric and just going off of the books, and at level 1 I had to pick between 12 cleric subclasses like it was in the original, that would be too much. But it's a 4-option choice, and it's not for everything. For fighters, I think it makes sense that people with combat training kind of operate the same way until they choose to specify into a specific thing. But for things like clerics, like warlocks, like paladins, like wizards to some extent, I think, or sorcerers especially. Like if I'm a sorcerer and my sorcerer's origin is that I have dragon blood, I want to have dragon blood.
I want to have a cool dragon power.
I want to give me my dragon blood. Send my dragon blood work to Deathclock AI.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, here we go again. All right, point taken, Andrew.
All right. Well, what are we looking forward to? 6th edition. It's here. We're going to start playing. What's great? What are you looking forward to, Analese?
I'm looking forward to playing more D&D. I am actually looking forward to whatever eventuality that has us playing these newer stats, because as I mentioned earlier, when we play on D&D Beyond, we now have to choose legacy options. And as I've been in that situation where I'm either adding something to my inventory and I choose between what they call regular and legacy now, some of the things on the new version seem much more user-friendly from the player's side. Like, oh, this would be a lot cooler if I could use it the way this says to use, but we're on legacy, so I'm going to use it under legacy. Right. So I do think there's some of these really minor changes, and it really just sounds like they're making it more player-friendly.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm looking forward to. Not that it was... D&D's not as hard as I built up in my head, right? There's certainly sometimes tangents that you and Adam and Andrew and Michael go on, and I'm just sitting back going, I have no idea what any of you guys are talking about. Just tell me what this role means to me. But hearing those conversations and now being able to understand more on my character sheet is what I'm looking forward to not having to have all that deep knowledge, having the character sheet tell me a little bit more of how to flavor a spell or how to take an action or use a weapon. If you've noticed, I'm asking less questions in games now because it's telling me that on the character sheet, even though we're using the legacy versions. So
it's just a better layout. But that's not what you put on our notes. What you put on our notes...
what I put on the notes is like I'm maybe running a game for the first time ever. I don't know. I don't have the Dungeon Master's Guide. I don't have the Monster Book, but y'all and Michael have been getting on my case about running something on Saturday. So we've talked about that, and I'm looking at different things, and I don't know what that means. It's going to be very far away because what?
When the 6th edition starter box comes out, because that's going to be designed to be a walkthrough on how to run an adventure. Will you commit to running the 6th edition starter box when it comes out?
Will you say
I will commit to looking at it to see if it's something.
Come on.
So I'll tell you what, based off what I see as a player, I am less nervous about it because it does sound like they're laying it out to be much more user-friendly. But the biggest piece that overarches all of that is whether or not I can commit the time. I'm going to say I will commit to looking at it.
It'll be a thin
yeah, but then it's all, you guys are talking about like setting up this stat block and doing this and figuring out that and do like that's time. I will commit to trying to see if
we could do a walkthrough. We could do a DM's workshop and we could record it.
That's true. D&D DM boot camp.
We can also maybe do it as a one shot. And that might be more palatable for the time.
Listen, that doesn't help me and Michael on our Saturdays and all the stuff we have to do. We need the help here.
But you got to start me somehow, right?
What's so special about you that I have to do all the prep work for D&D on Saturdays and you don't have time for it?
Oh, that doesn't have anything to do with specialness. You love it.
You'll love it too, Analese.
Possibly. So yeah, that's the thing. I will commit to. I'm going to see, right? And it's
not a commitment. Not a commitment.
That is a commitment.
I'm going to proceed.
That is a commitment. What about, okay, so what are you guys looking forward to?
What are you looking forward to? Fine.
I'm looking forward to the encounter building. I'm looking forward to using that new monster manual and having different things, different styles of monsters and building encounters more like adventuring parties. I'm also looking forward to, something new that we didn't talk about is like the enhancements that they did to martial classes with like the weapon mastery and stuff. I'm interested to see how that works as a player. But I do run more games than anything else, and I see that there's two things in particular that I want to look at. One is crafting. They have a crafting mechanic now, so you don't have to just rely on luck to find your magic items and your potions or spend a ton of money buying them. You can actually spend time crafting weapons, much like you can in like video games and stuff, right? You collect the different ingredients and you can build your magic items yourself over time. So that's cool. And then there's a whole nother mechanic that's new, which is bastions. Your bastion is your headquarters. So your adventuring party or your adventurer can build a business, right? What do you do with all this money and fame? Do you you build a cool wizard's tower for yourself? Do you start a
that's
school or a
interesting.
library? Do you open a tavern? That kind of thing. There's now rules for this where as you level up, you can do these bastion things and have your headquarters evolving and changing. It's this whole kind of mini game off to the side. So that seems cool. It's also, I'm playing another game where they have that built in. I think I talked about it a few episodes, Death Wizards, where you're an evil wizard with undead minions, and after every game you roll on like your layer chart and it's like, oh cool, I have a laboratory in my cave now, and eventually it's going to turn into a haunted mansion someday, and that kind of thing. So that seems fun. The other kind of cool part about the bastion turn is the way they described it in one of the videos I was watching was, hey, did your game get canceled because somebody couldn't show up or something happened? Tell your players to do a bastion turn instead. So like during that time, or the next week or two when we couldn't play, you could go on the bastion chart. You got, you could do it on text, right? Like, oh, who's gonna roll? Okay, I'll roll. What'd you get? 54. Look at the chart. We were visited by a wizard,
that's
and we get
interesting.
scrolls and stuff like that. And it's just kind of this other mini game happening in the background. I think I'll use it, depending on how the adventure goes. Sometimes when you're running an adventure, like that makes sense. You just have this headquarters. You have this place that you're always going back to. Now that's part of the game officially. Right.
That is kind of cool. It's kind of like Grand Theft Auto.
Well, there you go.
It's like, I was going to say it's like Red Dead Redemption 2 with the kid.
Oh, yeah?
But
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
there you go. So it's like
Right.
they've definitely taken that from video games and put in that mini game. So I'm looking forward to that as well.
I'm excited for my game, for my D&D 2024 game that I'm running. Like I said, we last time we played, we leveled up to level 2. So it's this nascent little game just starting out, just beginning to bud. But I'm excited. I have lots of fun plans. I am curious to see. The first adventure I ran was out of Keys from the Golden Vault, which is a collection of one-shots for 5th edition that I plugged in and ran with 6th edition characters, and it worked good. Like, the balance was fine. The combats weren't too easy. If anything, it was like, it's level 1 combat. People could die. Like, that was a risk. It seemed to work pretty well. And I'm interested to see how that power creep, if it exists, goes into like mid-levels, 3rd to 5th level, maybe even higher than that.
Is Keys from the Golden Vault one of the ones that if you go to the web store has a big banner across it that says compatible with 2024 rules?
Maybe.
Oh, okay.
I don't know for sure. I know it was one of the later releases.
Because some of them have that, if you go to D&D Beyond and you're looking at the books, it will tell you, like, everything's still available, but some of them have a big banner that says compatible with 2024 rules, so like, oh, okay, well, maybe I don't want to run this one if I'm trying to do the new stuff.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. I wonder, like, how different is Curse of Strahd with 2024 characters? Like, are they just gonna dog roll him, or what's it gonna be?
He's going to become even more unstoppable.
That's true. You'd have to juice him up.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, like that stat block. Anyway.
We're looking forward to lots more D&D.
Yeah.
There you go.
My goodness, Rob, we have 4 times the nerdiest thing this week, and I am so excited. I want to start with... Who should we start with? Dr. Intern Joan?
We should roll a D4.
Andrew?
Oh, we should roll a D4.
Oh, roll a D4. Let's do it. All right, Andrew's going to grab a D4. We're going to roll a D4 to see who goes first.
So
but
it's
we got a number.
alphabetical order.
Okay.
1, 2, 3,
so
4.
that's Joan, me, and Andy. So me, Andrew, Joan, then Rob.
Okay.
So
3.
1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Roll that D4, Andrew.
It's a 1.
Oh my gosh, of course, I get to go first. All right, nerdiest thing I did this week should be no surprise from everybody that I am still on the Final Girl train since Series 3 came out, and there's been pictures on our Instagram at Nerd Best Friends, and our Facebook, and our threads, and our everything. I had the whole game set out for about a week, and I played a bunch of games, and I went even into the 3rd series without painting the minis because I chose locations that you don't need minis for. Sleeved everything yesterday while I was watching Suits. I was just sleeving the whole game, looking at all the gorgeousness of it. I played a bunch of games, and my goodness, the tier dice has changed the world for Final Girl. So the real quick story about the tier dice.
Yeah.
One of the biggest complaints about the game is that it's really, really hard to beat. And yeah, I've lost way more games than I've won. And thematically, it's just fun. You have six-sided dice. A 1 and a 2 is a fail. A 3 and a 4, you have a symbol of little cards on it. And that means you can exchange 2 cards to make it a success if you want to. And then a 5 or 6 have a star.
Yeah.
Actually only have a 2 of 6 or a third chance to get a success on a roll. There have been many, many times that it's just fail, right? What they've done with the tier dice is they give you a tier tracker and they give you little wooden tier tokens. That a 1 and a 2 now is a tier emblem, and you can add tier to your tier tracker and then exchange them out for things. So if I'm trying to move and I fail at the dice, I could get 2 tier and I can use 2 tiers, TEARS. So I didn't pass the roll on the dice, but I could use the tier tracker to allow me to move. So it's helped move the game in a different way where you can have some success even with all those failures. And that's a Series 3 edition, which is awesome.
So I think we've seen other games do this. Like it's I can't remember off the top of my head. There's another game where it's like, as you fail, you get more dice to roll or something like that. But I think it's also kind of similar to the idea of when we do the Masks RPG. Your failure gives you points towards your level ups.
It's like catch-up mechanic in that way.
Yes.
Right, a catch-up or like you level up by learning from mistakes kind of philosophy.
Right. And it came with a little side neoprene board and new colored dice with the tier on it and a little dice tray that you put on that side neoprene board with your tier tracker. It did a really, really great job of adding a dimension to the game that it didn't have before. So really, really happy about that. Yeah, Final Girl 3, nerdiest thing I did this week. It's just been amazing, and I had to put it away so I could clean up the nerd room, but I can't wait to take it out again and play. All right, Andrew, roll that dice. Let's see who gets to go next.
Yeah,
so we'll re-roll ones now if we get any.
4. That's me.
Hey.
All right. So you guys know I am a heavy user of AI tools, particularly ChatGPT, but I also use Perplexity a ton for doing research. I use it in everything. I've replaced my Google browser with the ChatGPT browser because I'm like liberated from sponsored content and ads and everything. I just go straight on, ask my questions. It gives me the sources. Perplexity does the same thing. It's helped me immensely in productivity and things like that. I also go deep into it where I'm just like, what am I thinking about today? And I'll just go in and be like, I want to make some football prop bets, and we'll find all these sources and we'll tabulate the data and we'll put it on spreadsheets and stuff. I really do like the AI tools. I think that they are definitely, at this point, the way I use it, they're making my life better all the time. Love the AI tools. Inject it directly into my veins. I'm ready to have it. And guess what? They kind of did.
What? They injected it into your veins?
I have a new tool.
Oh.
No.
It is called Death Clock AI.
Oh, no.
And you give it information about yourself, and it basically tells you when you're gonna die.
Oh, boy.
And it looks at all of your stuff. The more stuff you put in, the more accurate it becomes. So you can upload your blood work. You can upload your family history. You upload what medications you're taking. You upload the supplements you're taking. And it does all these calculations and adjusts all this stuff. And it's like, oh, Rob Cooper is going to die at 79.3 years old of cardiovascular disease. He keeps doing exactly what he's doing. It hooks up with your watch. It hooks up with your Apple Health. So it's like tracking all of this stuff, putting it together, using AI to make this profile. It gives recommendations of like, hey, you should increase your exercise because the whole thing is supposed to be like longevity, right? So it's this very like grim kind of dark humor thing, but it's like, hey, if you keep doing what you're doing, this is where you're going to be. Want to live till 96? Talk to your doctor about this. Try exercising these many minutes a month. Maybe try this multivitamin. Like, it goes through these things. I've never been so motivated than when I see this cute Grim Reaper in a jogging suit come up and be like, hey,
you gonna die.
You're gonna die. Perfectly doesn't mean it doesn't work.
No, this is our first try. The loudness from Dr. Joan's face right now about your death app. Probably off the podcast, she's got a million questions for you, Rob, but...
Why not on the podcast? Let's go!
Look, I don't have questions. I just hope this is the answer to his 25 for 25 of drinking more water, because that was the big talking point of that podcast.
Water's not a factor in the death AI.
Dude.
Which is disappointing. Come on, death.
This is a science fiction short story award winner from the 80s, is what I think this is.
Maybe so. Like, it feels very
Seriously.
dystopian, but also it's great. I mean, it's here's what I'm going to replace water with is wearing my watch to sleep, because it measures and tracks, like your watch can measure and track your sleep. But I didn't really have any place that I was recording that because like I don't sleep with my watch on. But now this app will take that and use it as part of its AI profile on my life expectancy. So I'm like, I gotta start wearing this watch while I'm sleeping.
I think Dr. Google and Dr. AI can be very, very misleading. But what I will say is, if it's motivating you to do the things, then use it.
I will find, because obviously I don't want to just be like, oh, I saw this thing. But like, there was an actual reputable study where they did diagnosing patients, whatever. And they had ChatGPT versus doctors using ChatGPT. And ChatGPT by itself won every time, like by far and away. Like the humans are not it.
That
Cold, hard, calculated data. And I'm getting it now with Death Clock AI.
Doesn't speak well for our medical.
Well,
It's going to replace
Yeah.
healthcare.
I'm
That's
telling
another-
you, if I
that's
can
another
get,
story.
I'm seriously thinking about, because I joke, like inject it directly into my veins, getting one of those little diabetes things where you stab it into your shoulder or whatever and let it read that stuff constantly too.
I tried to get one of those. My
Yeah.
insurance wouldn't let me. Talk
Yeah,
about
well-
healthcare in our country.
You can get them; they're expensive.
Yeah, I'm not going to pay out of pocket for it.
Like $40.
And also, you have to
a day or
replace it like every 5 days or something like that.
It's like a weird thing, because I was looking at them and it's like, it's not like every 7 days and it's not like every month.
Yeah.
It's like every 11 days or some
Yeah.
weird thing to
It's-
try to keep
it's
track of.
so many
That's what I'm saying.
hours that it can be in your bloodstream. Like, I don't know, whatever.
yeah, like it's all fun and games now, but what happens when they're like, we've upped our prices for our monthly subscription, give us a liter of your blood.
I would do that over money.
Yeah, like I could make more blood.
All right, Andrew, roll that dice.
All right, so
Let's
it's
see.
either it has
Ignoring
to be
1 and
either 2 or
4.
3. That's a 2, so that's me.
2. All right, Andrew.
All right. The nerdiest thing that I've been doing this week and through the last few weeks is I have been recommending more comic books to my girl. Listen, I was very excited when I learned that we both shared this hobby of comic books. That's super cool. It's like a thing we have in common. It's a thing that we can talk about. And then I was like, oh, tell me about the comic books that you read. And she's like, oh yeah, I read this run of Batman. And I was like, oh, that sounds super cool. And she was like, yeah, I read this Tim Drake run as well. And I'm like, oh, that's so awesome. And she was like, that's kind of it. And I'm like, oof, okay, we got to get those numbers up. We got to make some changes around here. So I have been recommending mostly just volumes that I can easily grab off my shelf and give. I have started recommending comic books on Hoopla. One of my favorite activities, both in my own time and during school, is comic books on Hoopla. It's great. So far, for the listeners out there, I have recommended Volume 1 of Matt Fraction's Hawkeye, My Life as a Weapon.
Awesome.
I've recommended I Kill Giants, the volume.
Ooh.
Also,
Amazing.
Good one.
another amazing work. And I just recommended something. I know you talked about it with me. I don't know if you talked about it on the podcast. The Shadow over Innsmouth manga on Hoopla.
Yes, we definitely talked about that on the show. It's incredible. And that dude did not Mountains of Madness. I think he did Call of Cthulhu.
Oh yeah, did he?
It's on Hoopla right now. I started it. It's incredible.
Well, that's my next read.
Yep.
And really, the thing that makes us really nerdy is I think I may, despite all of my protests, I may be my father's son, because I've been thinking, well, what if there was a really nice and handy Google Sheets, or where I can type in the name and the author and the date of publication and where you can find it and like what you need to read to, and it's like, I mean, just like a little document where it's all laid out and organized and color-coded based on publisher, and I don't know, Analese. I think...
Ladies and gentlemen, it is February 2025, and it has happened. It has happened all along, but now what has happened is you know it. Now embrace it, Andrew. Embrace it. But I have a question for you. You're telling me you got your girlfriend, and she's like, oh, I love comics too. Andrew, I want to be your girlfriend. And then she's read too?
Yeah.
I think that was a lie that she told to get Andrew to like her.
So beware, Andrew. What else has she said? Oh, I really like the Avengers as well. And like, hasn't seen any movies. I don't know. Tread carefully, my friend.
I will. It's fine. She likes
No,
Spider-Man.
it's awesome. No.
She
You
saw
know
Across
me.
the
I got it back.
Spider-Verse 3 times.
Ooh, well,
That's a thing.
Which
That's more. That's
means
one
she's
more than
beating
me.
me.
that's not bad.
Oh, since meeting you. Okay. All right. Okay.
No. He said that's beating how many times
Oh.
he's seen it.
Yes.
Meeting you. Yes, same. I've only seen it twice. Well, that's cool. I'm glad that you have something that the two of you can enjoy together. And especially that one important thing about relationships is that you have something you both enjoy. And she enjoys reading them and is willing to read them. And like you guys are talking about them. That's perfect. That's super awesome.
I'm
And
just
very
happy about the
nerdy.
spreadsheet idea.
All of the agony you have spent about whether or not you are a worthy father. And now you have the proof.
I've never been prouder. My cheeks hurt. I'm beaming from ear to ear.
Oh, yeah. You're going to be talking about this for days. I know.
Yep.
Your cheeks hurt because your face isn't used to making this expression.
That's right. I've never smiled when I've been in the same room with. I haven't smiled in the same room with you
It's
since you were
for
10 years old.
16
It is hard grew
years.
3 sizes that day.
My son was just like me.
The cats in the cradle and the Google Sheets.
Oh my goodness, that's good. That's good. Well, congratulations, Andrew. I hope many long time of reading comics with your girlfriend.
And you got to make this Google Sheet because
And
you can use
spreadsheets.
it as you pick up chicks throughout your life.
That's true.
Well, listen,
I recommend you don't do that. Do not, if something happens and you break up with this girl and you get a new girlfriend, do not send her the spreadsheet that has your old girlfriend's color code of what she read on it.
It's got a thing. It's got the girl's name. and then
Girlfriend,
rating, and it just
ex-girlfriend
keeps
1,
adding columns.
ex-girlfriend 2.
No, it's like what? It's gonna be 5 years from now. I'm gonna be on like a dating app, and in my bio, it's gonna be like, "This is the required reading before the first."
Required reading for dating Andrew Cooper.
I love it. I love it. All right. I know Joan's on a timeline. We
Nope,
don't need
we're
to roll
over
the
time.
dice because
Okay, no need to
Dr.
roll.
Joan.
this is a wonderful extension of Andrew's and his girlfriend's comic reading experience, because if you cultivate a nerd relationship, you're going to get what my husband and I are doing for his 40th birthday, which is my nerdiest thing this week. We're planning his trip. His birthday's in July, but we're taking a week in April. We're going to Toronto. We're going to fulfill several nerd things. We're going to the Hockey Hall of Fame. We're going to go watch the Maple Leafs play the Red Wings.
Wow.
What?
We're going to see the Toronto Blue Jays play, and we're staying in the hotel that literally overlooks the stadium so we can watch the game from our hotel room.
That is amazing.
Dr. Joe, that sounds amazing.
Right? It's his trip. He loves baseball. We love hockey. I really kind of don't like baseball, which is blasphemy on this podcast, I know. But I'm doing it for him. We're really
You're going
excited.
to have a great time.
That sounds amazing. Are you going to wear your Kraken jerseys to the...
He
the hockey game?
tells me I cannot wear opposing teams things to opposing teams stadiums.
He is wrong.
Thank you.
I don't do that either.
So I'm going to wear my USC hockey jersey because
Nice.
it's very
I mean, that's
neutral.
still a good pull. Yeah,
That's
still
fair.
a good one.
That's at least a thing. Yeah, we're excited. And he booked us a condo overlooking Lake Ontario that is Star Wars themed, just to throw in that too.
What?
I don't. He's planning it. I'm just going along for the ride. But this is exciting.
That's insane.
Speechless.
Oh my gosh. I want to have a cool birthday.
I don't have a birthday. You won't. Death Clock AI says.
Oh,
that
that's
you're
right.
gonna-
Yeah. Death Clock A says no birthday for you this year.
Oh, gosh.
Don't do the birthdays. It literally goes down depending on what I eat that day.
Boy.
Don't get OCD over this app, Rob.
Yeah.
I'm worried about
3
you.
days of salads. Oh man, we're at 80.6. Couple days of like going to the brewery. Oh, you're down to 78, buddy.
Please put in iceberg lettuce versus spinach and see what salad preference it has. Just
Ooh, okay.
Well, back to Joan's trip. So you have a Star Wars themed condo. You're going to the Hockey Hall of Fame. You're seeing a hockey game there. You're seeing a baseball game in a hotel room that overlooks the stadium. So you don't actually have to. Can you get stadium food delivered to your hotel room? Can you be like, I want nachos and a beer?
that is a great question. Well, the ticket for the game also includes the stadium, so I assume we can walk out there too.
From your hotel room to the stadium and be like,
Yeah.
it's too people-y. Let's go back to the room.
Yeah. Well, that's where I'm staying. I'm staying in the hotel room because I really don't like people. So
Wow. If they're smart, interesting. I'm gonna bet. We'll see. I bet they've got some kind of deal with like DoorDash or somebody where you can like DoorDash the stadium food and it's super quick because they're just running down the hall.
Like
Truth.
room service. It's a room service during
Right, but
these
from the
hours.
stadium?
Yes.
That's what I would do if I was
Yes.
like, partner with somebody, overcharge for food. They just run it across from the thing. Oh my gosh, that sounds
I can't
so
wait
cool,
to hear
Joan.
about it after, too.
I will report back.
I also forgot that Joan was a big hockey fan. I should have been texting you back when they were doing that like 4 Nations All-Star game thing and talking about how wild that was.
Oh my gosh, that's why I want you and my husband to meet, honestly. He's a nerd about a lot of things. He reads comic books. He loves hockey. He used to be a goalie in his youth.
Wow.
Yeah, I think.
Oh my gosh. All right.
We still have to. We've been planning for years, Joan, like before I moved to Toledo years, about a trip to Oregon. We
Rob,
haven't done
get
it
on a
yet.
plane.
So we might have to do breweries around Portland and all that
Jeff
stuff.
also tries to get me to play tabletop games, but I can't. He also likes that. He's like made for this.
We could park ourselves in mocks for a day.
And I'll document it and you all can play because
I wonder if they'd let us like live stream in a private room or something like that.
I bet if we rented
we got
a room.
plans
See
to
why
be.
not.
We have plans to be
stop
had.
us?
Yeah,
Plans to be had.
plans to be had.
Very cool.
That's amazing.
Sounds super
All right.
fun.
On the next episode of Nerd Best Friends, catch up on our current nerd hobbies, check in on our 25 for 2025 progress, and find out what each other is doing nerd style. Remember our call to action. Hit that subscribe or follow button on your device and spread the word with those sweet 5-star ratings. Connect with us on social media at Nerd Best Friends or send us an email at podcast@nerdbestfriends.com. Let's grow our nerd family and keep the geeky fun going strong. And also, a reminder that we are NBF Podcast on Blue Sky. So find us somewhere, interact with us, send us that nerd mail, and we'll keep going. Well, I'm going to say thank you to Dr. Intern Joan and thank you to Andrew for being on the show today. It's been so much fun chatting with you both, and of course, Andrew with all the D&D nerdiness and goodness. Can't wait to have you both back on the show.
Thank you.
Till next time.
Thanks, guys. Wait a minute, you can see Dr. Jones' face right now?
Yeah, you can't?
No. We haven't seen. I thought she decided not to be on.
That's so rude. Go to the bottom and pick layout and do speaker split
Oh yeah,
screen.
change the layout. You can see everybody. This is amazing.
I have mark, clip, mic, cam, sound, share, leave.
Oh, dang. Settings
What?
at the top?
Oh, well, how come? What? Which? What? I thought Dr. Jones was just choosing not to have her mic on or her camera. I mean,
No, she's here. She's totally here. And her
Yeah,
face was really loud.
That's what I was saying. I thought Dr. Joan was like an AI bot because I couldn't see her.
She's all
funny.
waving and dancing at you and stuff.
what?
That's so funny. Oh my gosh.
Like,
Oh,
I
we
thought
got-
if Dr. Intern Joan put her video on, it would be just like a little moving effect bubble. like
Anime
Jack.
character.
Yeah, when I tried to do that, I couldn't get it.
I'm sure she has a lot to say about this, and